I'll say it again. When I was first starting out and these financial planners were telling me bonds were safe, I know the guy's lying to me because they don't know what the shit they're doing. The bond is only as good as the country that prints it. Hello, 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 and Happy New Year, 2025. Very exciting Rich Dad radio show today. I'm with a friend, Jay Martin from Vancouver, British Columbia, Canadian. The reason I'm going to be a speaker at his program called the Vancouver Resource Investor Conference, VRIC, January 20th. And please come by, see this show. It's probably the most important show of this year, I would say, given the state of the economy and the firefighters all over California. But the reason the VRIC is so important is simply because the nations of the world are rejecting the U.S. bond. And I've never trusted any financial planner who told me bonds are safe. I just felt they were lying to me. There's no such thing as safe. And every time they told me U.S. treasuries and bonds were safe, I said, you guys have no idea what you're talking about. And the reason is I am a gold man. I've been chasing gold and silver for much of my life. And U.S. bonds are trash as far as I'm concerned, because what's happening right now is China, Japan, and these countries are no longer taking bonds. They're taking gold and silver. So Jay, welcome to the program. And I'm really excited about joining you on January 20th. So welcome to the program, Jay.
It's so good to be here, Robert, and thanks so much for having me back. Yeah, we conflict this year with the inauguration, our conference dates. It's a big day, January 19th and 20th in Vancouver.
Yeah, so give us the pitch on the VRIC, what's in it for the people, and I'll back you up because I go there for me too. I mean, I don't go just to speak, I go to learn.
I love that. Robert, it's a commodity investment conference. And so for 2 days, what we do at the Vancouver Resource Investment Conference is we stream content on one of our 6 stages. So it's quite a large event. We have about 8,000 investors that show up each year. And investors come because they're curious about how to allocate their investment dollars into hard assets or commodity companies. The reason we're hosting this show this year is because, I firmly believe we're in a secular commodity bull market. And the 2 main reasons, there's quite a few, but the 2 main reasons would just be that we're going through a big geopolitical reshuffling, and we're seeing this all over the world. New alliances are forming, new adversaries are being made. And all that means is that the supply and the sharing of natural resources will be less certain. Countries will be more specific with who they buy and sell raw materials to and from. And whenever the supply of something becomes less certain, scarcity goes up and price goes up as well. And so that's one reason. And the second is just that we haven't invested in new supply of gold, of silver, of copper, of nickel in any large number for about 15 years. And so we're running out of all of it, right? Doesn't matter which hard commodity you look at, we're running into a supply problem because we haven't invested in new stuff. And so that's a great position to be as an investor in this market. And so we'll see about 8,000 investors show up who want to learn about how to allocate capital into that market. On our stages, you'll hear from individuals like yourself, Robert, just talking about, great financial stewardship and how to begin portfolio construction and how to speak the language of money. It's a topic that most people are never taught in school. And we do deep dives into geopolitics. We do deep dives into macroeconomics and finance, and we do deep dives into capital allocation into commodities and commodity stocks. And so those are kind of the 3 buckets that we cover at this event.
But the best thing is you have some of the best speakers. I mean, you come to learn. And for those of you who know nothing about copper or silver or gold, it's a very important show. I mean, I don't know. It's more important today than ever before, simply because like Bitcoin is coming up. Bitcoin is in that same category as gold. And the reason Bitcoin's coming up is the U.S. bonds in trouble. This is a book I wrote here a few years ago who stole my pension. Our pensions are bankrupt, and our pensions are filled with stocks, bonds, and mutual funds and ETFs. The bonds are what concerns me. I'll say it again. When I was first starting out and these financial planners were telling me bonds were safe, I know the guy's lying to me because they don't know what the shit they're doing. The bond is only as good as the country that prints it. So what is happening today is for years, about 2000, I think, when China opened its doors to trade and all this, they would send us all their trinkets and goodies and stuff like this, and we'd send them dollars, U.S. dollars, and then the Chinese would send the dollars back to us and buy bonds. So it was really a nice relationship. But with Trump in power right now, and he's going to mess with the Chinese, and the Chinese are going to say, we don't want your bonds. Bonds are the most important paper asset there are, and they're not buying them again. So the US dollar is in serious, serious trouble. And to compensate for that, they'll have to probably print more, which is why gold and silver goes up. There was something else that happened. I forgot the exact date, but the BIS, Bank of International Settlements, the central bank, classified gold as a tier 1 asset. Up until then, it was U.S. bonds. So even the banks are shifting from paper, from fake assets like a bond, into gold and silver. And it's a fascinating show. The reason I love Jay's show, the VRIC in Vancouver, January 20th, is simply because you get to meet the guys themselves. In other words, if I was talking to a financial planner, which I don't, because I don't trust them either, but is rather than talking to a financial planner who says, well, I got this gold ETF, I got this silver ETF, I got this copper ETF. The thing that's fascinating about the VRIC is you talk to the entrepreneur. You get to go see the guy standing there with his little gold mine. And because I was one of those guys years and years and years and years ago, before Rich Dad, I was one of those guys standing next to my gold mine, pitching it to people and all this stuff. So if you're really a hardcore entrepreneur, you want to see how gold and silver and resources, such as copper, are coming to the marketplace. You'll meet some fascinating people, not some silly financial planner. So that's what I love about your program. And then you have some great, great speakers. So who are some of the speakers you have this year?
So this year and every year, Robert, I am super excited about who we're bringing to the stage. This year is amazing. So inside of those three buckets, geopolitics, macro finance, and capital allocation. Up at the top, we have individuals like Colonel Douglas McGregor and Dr. Pippa Malmgren, two of the world's leading geopolitical analysts, very outspoken. What they're very, very good at is analyzing all of these conflicts that are occurring right now around the world and pulling them apart and explaining them simply. Here's the stakeholders on the ground, and here's what they're really after. If you dig into any conflict deep enough, what you'll find is it's almost always a battle over what's in the ground, the resources, which relates to our conference. In the macroeconomics bucket, individuals like yourself, Danielle DiMartino Booth, David Rosenberg, Grant Williams. And this is when we're discussing, the bond market, the future of the US dollar. We'll be talking about non-US dollar trade and how that's increasing around the world. And most importantly, why? Why is that occurring? And so pulling apart those macro threads that help us understand, where the vulnerable points are in an asset class like the US dollar, and why are central banks all over the world no longer buying US treasuries, but they're buying physical gold. Like, what are they paying attention to? Why are they making that decision? And so that's what we cover in that box. And then the third, which is the capital allocation. These are my investors and my entrepreneurs. So these are individuals like Frank Giustra, Rick Rule, Ross Beatty, gentlemen who have made, billions in the natural resource sector as investors, and they will be sharing their portfolio ideas for 2025 and why.
Yeah, Giustra's fascinating speaker.
Yes.
I mean, the reason the VRIC, Vancouver Resource investment conference is so important. It's about real money, not fake money. And that's why you actually get to talk. If you're a hardcore entrepreneur, or you want to be an entrepreneur, like I did 25 years ago, I get to stand, you get to go talk to the guys at the booth. You get to look at their minds. You get to look at what how they pitch a deal to you and all this. And who knows, you might strike the next biggest find of all and buy, the stock at pennies on the dollar. So that's what's fascinating. So if you really want to learn about how the real world of money is, which is money based on commodities, gold and silver, and today Bitcoin, if you want to find that out and then talk to the actual entrepreneurs, not some silly financial planner. I mean, you'll learn. I learned so much every time I go there. I'm a kid in a candy store. I can't talk to all of them, but I'm also looking for the next hot, mine that's coming up and all this stuff. And in which which company has the best deal, the best assays. But you'll also learn about, exactly as Jay was talking about, macro, what's really going on in the world. And what Jay was alluding to, if there's a war, there's resources. I'll say it again. If there's war, there's resources. And I know that from my own personal background is in 1966, I sailed to a place called Vietnam. Then I went back there in 71 to fight. And what were we fighting for? Gold, silver, copper, oil. It's always about what's real is the resources. That's why it's called Vancouver Resource Investor Conference. So it's about real money, and your speakers are world class. I mean, Danielle DiMartino Booth, she was a federal official, Federal Reserve banker. Man, she doesn't hold any punches.
No, she doesn't.
No, you
She's
come
always
to,
fun on stage. Yeah, big time.
oh man, she's ruthless. I mean, not ruthless, but she's to the point.
Mm-hmm.
Now you want to talk to some fluffy financial planner? Well, call Charles Schwab.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and your point on at the root of all conflicts are natural resources, and we're seeing this today. We're seeing a couple hot conflicts for sure, but also just trade wars are heating up, right? And you look at a lot of the statements made from President-elect Donald Trump last week about, his ambitions for Greenland, for example. Does he really want to purchase Greenland, or does he want the critical minerals that exist in Greenland? And just as importantly, he doesn't want China and Russia to get access to those minerals. So it's really all about securing supply of those resources. Same thing in Canada, the conversation about Canada being the 51st state. Well, why is that important? It's because Canada is a top 5 global producer of oil, gas, uranium, nickel, gold, right? We produce 30% of the world's potash, a fertilizer that if you grow food, you need. 25% of the world's softwood lumber. That's why Canada is interesting to the United States. That's why Greenland's interesting to the United States. It always comes back to the resources in the ground. And, that's really what we endeavor to do with this conference, is dive into those narratives so that you can uncover the investment proposition.
Yeah. And you forgot one of my favorite resources, lithium.
Right.
Every EV has lithium in it, and so solar panels. So Jay's program, Vancouver Resource Investment Conference, is about real money. And the thing I love about it, even if you know nothing, you'll learn a lot. You cannot help but learn when you go to these conferences. Great speakers, the way you present it is fabulous, with roundtables and things like this. So it's probably I would say the most important show of the year. So we come back when we find out more about what's going on. I want to hear about Colonel McGregor being these are my pilot's wings here. Like I said, I was in Vietnam, not for the Vietnamese people, but for their resources. And war is a very profitable business. We'll be right back with Jay.
Hi, folks. Rich Bontrager for the Rich Dad team. And let me tell you, I couldn't be more thrilled about the landslide win. Donald Trump is back in office, and we've got both the House and the Senate in our corner. That's huge. But let's get real for a second. While the victory is sweet, the challenges we face as a nation are nothing short than monumental. We've just come out of 4 years of economic chaos. Think about it. The dollar has lost value. Inflation runs rampant. Interest rates are through the roof. Our national debt is out of control, and wars rage around the globe. Donald Trump has inherited an economy that's a total mess, and the burden to rebuild it is immense. Now, let's be honest, this isn't going to get fixed overnight. And even as we work to restore order, the cost of rebuilding will be steep. Printing more money to address the issues, ongoing assaults from BRICS nations on the dollar, and even climbing national debts are massive concerns. Here's the deal. Your savings aren't in the clear. They're vulnerable to these uncertainties. And let me tell you, gambling with your wealth right now is not an option. In these last few years, that taught us anything, that we need to take action, proactive steps to protect what we've worked so hard to earn. That's why Rich Dad is partnering with Allegiance Gold, a company that we trust to protect your financial future. Gold and silver are timeless ways to hedge against economic chaos. They're not just investments, they're peace of mind for your wealth. Here's the kicker. When you start your investment with Allegiance Gold today, you'll even get free silver as part of their exclusive offer. Just mention Robert sent you, and they'll take great care of you. Folks, now is not the time to sit on the sidelines. Act today. Secure your wealth. Go to protectwithrobert.com or call 844-3-ROBERT. That's 844-376-2378. And let them help you get started today.
Welcome back, Robert Kiyosaki, the Rich Dad Radio Show. The good news and bad news about real money. And our guest today is a friend of mine, Jay Martin. He puts on the best program. I mean, this is the Vancouver Resource Investment Investor Conference. And people think, well, that sounds kind of boring. You know, it's about dirt or ground. But it is about real money. So for those of you who are into your financial education, it's 2 days long. Is that correct, Jay?
It's 2 days, January 19th and 20th. That's right.
Yeah. You'll learn so much about the real world of money, not this fake stuff. You have like a Zimbabwe dollar, which it's $10 million there. You know, it's a Zimbabwe dollar. This is the future of the US dollar. So the reason the VRIC, Vancouver Resource Investment Conference, January 19th and 20th is important, it's about real money, but it's also about war. And so Colonel McGregor is there. When he speaks, man, I tell you, you know, I was 6 years a Marine pilot. And I was, like I said, I was in Vietnam. I know what I was there for. I was there for the money, you know, the resources. And today we have the Ukraine and we have Saudi Arabia and the Middle East. There'll always be war there because they have oil. But I'm also starting a mine in Canada with lithium. That's for batteries and solar panels and all this stuff. But it's real money. It's just real money. And it's a real show. And it's fascinating because the speakers you have, the lineup is incredible. So if you're really into your financial education and you're tired of this fluffy financial planner stuff, invest for the long term in a well-diversified portfolio of stocks, bonds, mutual funds, ETFs. I don't touch that crap. It's garbage. So you want to see what real money is like, you come to Vancouver, British Columbia, and Jay Martin. So Jay, you know, this Colonel McGregor, he's an interesting character because every time he speaks, I feel war coming up. But war is always about the resources, the money.
Yeah.
And, you know, America is a Saudi Arabia for debt. While Saudi Arabia pumps oil, we pump debt. And as I said at the start of the show, it's called a U.S. bond. And every time those fluffy financial planners tell me, oh, bonds are safe, I'm going, they don't know what they're talking about because a U.S. bond is debt. That's all it is. It's a piece of debt backed by the United States of America. And what is happening in the world today is the Chinese and the Japanese and many other countries are no longer accepting the bonds. So there's going to be hell to play. All you little guys with your 401ks and your pensions, the bond market is 10 times bigger than the stock market. And the bond market is going to crash. That's my prediction. So that's why I would be at VRIC with Jay's program to talk about real money, listen to real speakers. Any comments you want to make there, Jay?
Yeah, well, you mentioned Colonel McGregor, who's like a favorite of mine, and he's very outspoken, very controversial. He rubs a lot of people the wrong way, but I think he's a truth teller. And what he does extraordinarily well is get into the actual incentives behind these wars that are breaking out globally, because it's so easy to get lost in the headline and the narrative, but to actually understand what's occurring is very important. And so, before the break, we talked about some of the statements that Trump's made about his ambitions for Canada or for Greenland. What's really at the root of that is the resources in Canada, in Greenland. You could look at the Russia-Ukraine war, and you should, through the exact same lens. Russia is the largest commodity exporter in the world.
Yeah.
Those resources don't just end at the Russian-Ukraine border. They continue. There's trillions of dollars of wealth beneath the ground in Ukraine. That's why America is so invested in that war, is because not only do they want access to those resources, but they want to prevent access to the Russians. And these resource wars are really how I would describe, the hot conflicts that have broken out over the last few years. And it's I believe that's where investors should start. They should begin by trying to understand those global dynamics. And then once you have a good grasp of that, then you move into the macro, because the macro is usually in response to those global conflicts, right? What is monetary and fiscal policy doing, and why does that matter? Well, generally speaking, it's in response to what's happening at a global trade level. And that'll determine, our how much stimulus we're going to have to print, and how we're going to have to inflate the currency this year to keep funding the war effort. There's a lot of very inflationary policies in the pipeline right now that I think people are sleeping on a little bit. Tariffs, for example, are maybe the right call, but those costs always get put back onto the consumers. They're very inflationary by nature. We're looking at deporting a large percent of the labor force, like maybe for the right reasons, but you deport the cheap labor, that's inflationary. And you want to reshore industries, again, for the right reasons. I think it's a great policy, but you're taking industry away from cheap labor, getting that done in America at a premium, that's inflationary. And so we're going to run into some problems in terms of purchasing power. In addition, your book is just perfectly timed, because everybody focuses on the $2 trillion of deficit that we run each year, but there's $100 trillion in off-balance sheet liabilities in the United States. That means future promises to pay. Those are financial commitments that the American government has made in the future. So that's pensions largely, right? And military commitments. And we don't know where we're going to get that money from, but $100 trillion is a lot of money. And I could guess we're just going to print it. We will deliver on the nominal value of those commitments, but with a very devalued currency. That's the only way to get there. And that's what brings me back to the commodity sector, because as you said, that's the real stuff. And, money is just a unit of exchange, because you have something and you want something else, but we can't always just have a simple trade. So we need a universal unit with which we can exchange, right? And that's all currency is. But what really holds the value is the stuff that currency buys, right? The real estate, the assets, the businesses, and the commodities, right? And that's my wheelhouse. That's where I spend all of my time, is in the mining industry, in the commodity industry. I love it. I believe, like, if you love studying commodities and then you use that as a lens to interpret the world, it's kind of like watching a real life Game of Thrones, because countries are jockeying for power left, right, and center to get access to the stuff. And that's the real narrative behind so many of our news events, so many of these global conflicts. It's what drives elections and much more.
Well said, well said, well said. This is about real money. And for those of you who fancy yourself entrepreneurs, try starting a gold mine. You have not lived. I
Right.
mean, all these little pussies with their little, what do you call that, crypto and all this stuff, and they, I'm an entrepreneur. Oh, I
Right.
started a taco factory. Good. Try starting a gold mine or a silver mine. It's like last summer I was up in Yellowknife, Canada, looking at lithium, and we bought it for $20 million, but it's about a $5 billion play. And it's real entrepreneurship is what I'm saying. It's
Mhm.
like the old prospectors, the 49ers in America that came across country looking for gold. So most of the world has changed because of resources, which is a Vancouver Resource Investor Conference. You come to learn You'll meet the real people, not some fluffy financial planner. And you're not buying these stupid things called bonds that the Chinese are not buying anymore. They've made so much money and they produce and they sell all these trinkets to the world, and we send them dollars. And with those dollars, they'd buy bonds. And that's why those fluffy financial planners tell you, oh, it's as safe as a US bond. I'm going, oh, and the Chinese are not buying anymore because they don't want our dollars. If you can understand that one, you'll get the whole macro in this whole thing right here. So if you're a real entrepreneur, I mean, I go there just to talk to these guys. And there's kind of a truth to it because, Vancouver is where I see the real Frito Banditos hang out in Vancouver. I mean, everybody's got a deal. Everybody's got a mine. Everybody's doing something. And it's exciting. It's just exciting. I go and see my partners up there too because they're from Vancouver.
Well, it's like a real life Shark's Tank, right? When
Yeah,
you walk around the trade show floor,
yeah,
because
yeah,
investors who walk in, there's 250 companies in our exhibition hall this year, and they're all small companies looking to raise capital, looking to
yep,
connect with investors. They're going to give you their pitch. And it's a lot of fun strolling around the trade show and listening to one after the other, which you should always do if you're investing in, a medium to small business. You're betting on the entrepreneur. That's who you're really investing in. And so given the opportunity to go and meet that individual, shake their hand, look them in the eye, and decide for yourself whether or not you trust them before you let them go have an adventure with your money is very, very important. And so we try to bring that to life. And that's what you'll experience when you come to the VRIC is, yes, thousands of other investors there learning together, looking for opportunities shoulder to shoulder. But you'll get to interview as many as you want of these CEOs and entrepreneurs who are building solutions to our commodity supply problem. And then
yeah.
go hit the speaker hall, hear from Robert, Danielle DiMartino booth. And if you want to meet all the keynote speakers, by the way, Robert, we have a VIP pass for anybody who's super keen and wants a front row seat in the speaker hall. And then more importantly, wants to come to our keynote speakers cocktail party. There's a VIP ticket option for anybody who's like, I want to go and I want the full meal deal. I want to meet everybody. I want to have a cocktail with Robert. I want to have a cocktail with Danielle DiMartino booth and ask them my questions personally. We provide that option for anybody who's really looking to get involved.
So let me just say this much. Even if you know nothing about commodities or resources, you're not supposed to know anything anyway. You know what I mean? You go there to ask questions. So if I were you, you knew nothing, and it was a silver mine in front of you, and silver is about to take off. Oh my God, I've been stockpiling silver for a while now. But you go up to a silver guy, I've got a silver mine in Argentina. You don't have to tell him anything. Ask him questions. Why are you drilling? How much money? How much is it going to take? So a lot of people think you have to be smart to go to the show. No, you don't. But you go to the show to get smarter.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I love about it, because I'm going to cruise around. I'm looking for that next mine, the big one. Every what they say is everybody's standing there, the guys with a little mine. It's a liar standing next to a hole in the ground.
Right.
They're always
Yes.
pitching these stupid holes in the ground. And if you don't know any different, it doesn't make any difference. You don't have to buy anything. Just ask them, so why are you so bullish on that hole in the ground? And it's fascinating. It's just fascinating. And like, for full disclosure, I have a mine starting in Yellowknife, Canada. It's lithium. And lithium is used in batteries and solar panels all over the world. Do I know anything about it? Not really, but I know the miner who does know about it.
There it is. Yeah.
You know what I mean? I know the guy. I'm not going to drill. I'm just going to give him my money. And that's how you get rich.
And that's it, because you're betting on the person, right? And
Yeah.
you're more so than you're investigating different commodities and business models. You're looking at the entrepreneur and saying, I'm betting on this individual. And we bring the top performing entrepreneurs in the industry up on stage. The Frank Giustras, the Ross
Oh my God.
Beatties,
That man's a
Sean
stud.
Rusens.
That boy is a stud, Justra.
He's a stud. Exactly. Yeah. He's made a lot of money building great companies.
Yeah.
And so, I owe a service to my audience. I say, look, there's 250 opportunities out there, but I always pull the top shelf entrepreneurs on stage with me so they can share a bit of lessons with the audience to say, here's how you should begin qualifying these opportunities. Randy Smallwood, multi-billion-dollar royalty company. Sean Ruzin founded the largest Canadian gold mine, the Malartic mine. Lots of these entrepreneurs will come and square off with me on stage just to give the audience like the behind the curtain view at how really great companies are built from the ground up.
Yeah, it's so much fun. I mean,
It's fun.
These guys are hardcore entrepreneurs. You want to be, to be a gold or silver miner or copper, man, you've got to have, a lot of steel. Boy, it is such a business. Anyway, I'm looking forward to seeing you in a few days, Jay. Again, it's the Vancouver. Final words. Give them more details about the show and where they can stay and all these other things.
Yeah, 100%. So just go to vricmedia.com, or actually to celebrate the change of administration in Canada, you can also go to goodbyejustin.com and get your tickets there. This show is 100% sponsor supported. And so I have amazing partners. And what that means is that general admission is actually free. You do have to pre-register. You can't just show up, but you pre-register at vricmedia.com. Get yourself a general admission pass, and that gets you access to everything, all 5 stages, the exhibit hall, whatever you want to see. And then for those that want to take the next step, come to the keynote speakers cocktail party, make sure you have a front seat in that speaker hall, then pick up a VIP ticket. And it's super fun. January 19th and 20th at the Vancouver Convention Center. We expect around 8,000 investors this year. It's going to be a good one.
And Vancouver is such a beautiful, beautiful city.
It is.
Most beautiful cities. And for full disclosure, I spent lots of my youth up there because that's where the deals are made. And I think it's the most fascinating place. And it's not like talking to some fluffy financial planner. So anyway, Jay, I'll see you in a few days, and for all of you out there, thank you for listening to the Rich Dad Radio Show. And I'll be right back for the final word. So thank you, Jay. I'll see you soon.
I'm looking forward to it.
Welcome back, Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad Radio Show, and thank Jay Martin. And remember, this is the Vancouver Resource Investment Conference, Investor Conference. You go there even if you know nothing. I spent so much of my life up there because that's where the real entrepreneurs hang out. And these guys take risks so big. That's why you've got to be smarter. So if you're starting, crypto miner, it's a little different. And the risk is different. But when you're into resources, those are the real entrepreneurs. And I go there to learn. And I'll say it again, you don't have to know anything. Just be willing to ask questions. So thank you very much. Rich Dad is all about financial education. I don't make recommendations you buy gold, silver, or Bitcoin, but I own lots of it because it's real money. Thanks very much.
This podcast is a presentation of Rich Dad Media Network.